Hello, I'm Darren Jackal. I'm in my studio. I talk about product development, design, and mountaineering. Welcome to another edition of Experimental Design Discourse and Disclosure. Last episode, I started my talk on design, and I'm going to continue that today. One of the first things I mentioned was my use of the paranoid critical method, where I'm swinging a hammer wildly and conceptual nails are presenting themselves. Now, I think it's important to point out that afterwards, perhaps through scientific means, these hammer swings and the nails are evaluated to either validate or dismiss them. I think it's important to remember that there are bad ideas. The key is to not unleash bad ideas on an unsuspecting population. I like to think that it's possible to use bad ideas to generate good design. So moving on, next thing I want to talk about is seeing. There's the idea of looking and seeing, hearing and listening, one being more intense or more focused than the other. But in my world, Thomas Kuhn says, you don't see something until you have the right metaphor to let you perceive it. And an important part of my work is in seeing the world through other people's eyes, having different perspectives on the world. A complex structure, issue, problem, etc. must be viewed from as many pertinent vantage points as possible in order to generate a rich mental image. It's important to understand that seeing a problem from one way at one instance must not prevent the designer from looking at the same problem in another way when the opportunity arises or the situation demands. This will help the designer establish a layered mental vision that may be continually reorganized and updated and will aid in the comprehension of the same issue under different circumstances. Now, I have been taught to see the world in as many different ways as possible. There are a lot of examples. I see objects and products as being an extension of the body. This comes from people like Marshall McLuhan, and the medium is the message, that things are an extension of the body, the wheel is an extension of the foot, the book is an extension of the eye, etc. Another way that I have learned to see the world is through somebody like Norbert Wiener. Communication and control in man and machine. He is the father of cybernetics. This is another worthwhile view to look at when you want to understand the world in a different way. And at some point along the way, I'll start to speak about my view on intelligence and evolution and how I believe they are two sides of the same coin. We know evolution exists because we are a result of evolution. We're not always fully sure of how it works. We have our theories, but what we can say for sure is that we are the result of that process. And so by using a process in my own design development, I like to think that I can imbue my designs, my objects, my products with intelligence. So I'm trying to create intelligent objects, intelligent products through the use of an evolutionary process. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give some background into the next projects I'm going to introduce, and this is going to be done through slides. I don't have these digitally created, so I'm going to switch over now and we'll look at some slides, and I'll tell you all about how I came about to be doing these projects.
In the 1990s, I was a design student, and I was supporting myself doing design build for a variety of clients. I was able to get these design build projects because I had some pretty good experience building custom houses in Canmore in the 80s when I was an outdoor instructor. I would help pay the bills between outdoor instruction gigs and working towards my guides ticket by building custom houses. So building these custom houses, and combined with these graphic techniques I learned in advanced architectural classes. These are based upon these figure studies. So this was from a a fellow by the name of Sylvain Boulanger, who taught this course in advanced architectural graphics. He actually devised, I'm not sure who came up with this, but devised a language for composition. This is about spatial composition from studying eye movement of people viewing abstract art. And so from those studies, they derived a method, and I'll probably maybe get into it a little bit more. But these combined with this project I had building well, I didn't do the building, I did the design work. I worked with the owner designing a nightclub, and these bar stools right here are one of the reasons I got that job. I was working on these bar stools for a senior design class of mine in industrial design. So that, combined with the work I was doing on other design build projects, got me this job. And in this job we did we did the layout design, we did design of all the fixtures, and most importantly, what I want to talk about is we did the lighting design. So these wall sconces eventually turned into the product I'm going to be talking about next, is a floor lamp that came from this lighting project. So the good thing about this project is that I have recently reviewed it and in a case study, and I've determined that it is ultimately a failed product. So I'm going to go over why it's a failed product, and after all these years and all the effort I put into it, why I decided that.
The story of the lamp continues in that I was working on the lamp as a side project, trying to have more portfolio pieces, and I had a first iteration of it at a Christmas party I had, and someone saw that lamp and decided they wanted to invest in this lamp, whatever. So I wound up taking his fellow's money, and starting a company, and with the rest of the money I endeavored to start manufacturing. That was the main idea of this, is that I would control the means of production myself. I would go through all the stages, and I wanted to understand the process that after the design was over, how that all plays out. And what I discovered, all kinds of different production quality control issues, is that eventually I had to shelve it. I ran out of money. But in the past few years, I've had a few of them out there in the field. I started it up again a few years ago to fulfill some of those obligations to the people who own these lamps. Long story short, I revived this project. I had a bunch of these frames, and I did a case study on it as I created some new ones. I finished up some of the design elements that never were ultimately finished to my satisfaction. So I did keep it honest to itself, and this is why this will never be a successful product, is in the usability of it. It is a useful and potentially desirable product, but because it can pop out easily and explode, you cannot unleash something like this on an unsuspecting population. So keeping honest with it meant that it wasn't usable, which means it's now become something like functional art, which that's not my thing. I don't do functional art. So anyways, you can have objects that are desirable but not very useful. We call this art or decoration, ornamentation. If you have something that is useful and you want it to be desirable, it's best that it is usable, and that's what makes it a desirable product. Now, there are instances of useful products becoming desirable, but that have really poor usability, and Philip Stark's citron, or the citrus squeezer, his lemon squeezing product. That is a great example of, in my opinion, bad design. So anyways, let's wrap this up. I'm Darren Jackal. I'm talking about design now, and stay tuned for the later parts of this. Take it easy.